Hi everyone, we are Ben and Mikka, part of Redeemer Church here. We're going to give you a little summary of how it looked for us when we moved to Colchester and why we moved here. Before we got married, just over 5 years ago, we were part of a great church in Canterbury called the City Church, and we'd seen examples of other people church planting and pioneering. It's something that we felt God had spoken to us about. We wanted to see what it looks like for a new church to start and grow and flourish. So we were interested in any opportunities that might allow us to see that. And that's where Colchester came into play.
So we had been on a list of people who were interested in going elsewhere but didn't really have a place. And we ended up meeting with you one evening just to kind of see where we were at. But we'd heard about Colchester and we were interested, disproportionately excited maybe. I didn't really know very much about it, just knew it was in Essex. Ben had been to the zoo as a child, but that was all of our questions, was just about Colchester and what was going to happen. So that evening he asked, are you maybe thinking about some big life event in the summer? We said yes, we would like to get married. So that was the September that we met him. We got engaged in the December and married at the end of June the following year.
We were then looking to move here to Colchester as soon as possible after getting married, so we hadn't arranged housing in Canterbury. Where we'd been applying for jobs and looking at houses up here in Colchester, nothing had happened yet. So amazingly, there were two different families in Canterbury who let us stay at their places while they were away, each for a month, in July and August of that year. And the plan was that we were going to move here by September, whatever happened. Even if we didn't have job and house yet, we could have crashed at the Pierces. I think that offer was on the table. For months then over the summer, we were applying for jobs, trying to make everything happen practically, looking at house stuff. We were being really proactive about it, but we also had faith about what God was going to provide for us. So it felt a little bit frustrating and challenging when things didn't fall into place immediately with any of those. In fact, we had to stay at these wonderful couples' houses in Canterbury, and we were hopeful to get here. We decided that by September we would move here whatever happened, even if it meant we were crashing on the Pierce's couch. So a bit of a gap between what we were hoping for and what things looked like at a very practical level.
After all the applying for jobs and coming up for interviews and things like that, we were about to move, like the day before we moved, we still didn't have anything. And we thought, okay, well, we're just going to have to go tomorrow with no jobs or anything. It got to 5 o'clock and Ben was due to hear about a job that he'd interviewed for, and we didn't hear anything. 5:30, and I thought, oh no, the working day finishes at 5:30, so that must be it. And then it got to 6 o'clock and he got the phone call to say that he'd got a job at the Colchester Institute, which is a college here, which was great. So we had one job, and so we moved the following day. Ben was still working in Maidstone, so that night we drove to Colchester and stayed with a family here, but he was commuting for the next 3 days. So even during that kind of time, I was still, Hugh and Chloe were driving me to more job interviews, more house viewings, and it was that August bank holiday weekend. But by the time we'd been in Colchester for 1 week, we had the call about my job and we'd signed for a house. So it took being here before everything kind of came together, but we really knew God's provision after praying and pushing on doors and making a lot of effort. We saw his provision and that he'd made a way for us to be here, which was great.
Yeah, so it's just an example of where for months and months we've been trying to make things happen and we've been diligent in that. I think God showed favour exactly when we needed it. His provision was timely, it was fantastic. The jobs and the house were right in the middle of town, so it meant we really got to know the area. We got to meet people living in the centre of Colchester, which was fantastic. And so many of these things were real answers to prayer exactly when we needed it, rather than when we would have preferred it a few months earlier for comfort and convenience sake.